Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Hangout number 183. Just want to say right up front, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe, like the video, check my playlist. And if you're interested in other things like not so much profiling of crimes, but profiling of life, check out my other channel, Dear Profiler Pat. I'm kind of a Dear Abby, but a little bit more in depth and a little bit more straight in your face. So anyway, those are my thoughts before I start. Oh, also, if you'd like to be in the chat room, welcome everybody who is in the chat room. Join Patreon. It's the link below. And you can be in the chat rooms twice a week for my hangout like this and the case show on the weekend. It's $5 a month and it supports an educational channel. All right, that's my spiel. All right. Kara says, Abby with honesty. Well, you know, most of the when I look through many different advice channels, they're usually, because they're in the different kinds of media, which are usually printed of some sort, even if it's on the internet, and it's a question, and then they give this much of an answer. But I like to go into depth because I feel like somebody else's issue may not be our exact issue, but in reality, we struggle with certain problems that are similar. And I like to make that a little bit of a wider discussion because, you know, we can always use to think about how we handle life and what we need to do. So anyway, welcome everyone. Shell is here now, and who's just rolled in? I'm trying to see who's. I think Jennifer's rolled in too. Okay, all right. Starting out. All of you want to ask about certain things. Last week I did a whole thing on Grok. My children, Jennifer, that Grok got correctly as the name, but they said she was a she was a graphic designer, which she can't. She says I can't draw a stick figure. So my daughter Jennifer is not a graphic designer. So don't believe Grok or any of the AI people. But it was a super funny thing I read out to you last week. If you haven't seen that, go back to 182. Patron Hangout 182. But they said she was a graphic designer. And I'm going to tell you, she scared the crap out of me this week. So she sent me a little text and she said, Mom, are you available for lunch on Friday? Now, what do you all think of that? If your child asks you to lunch on Friday, what do you think? I'm curious about what would go through your mind. Now, mind you, there was nothing. Wasn't my birthday. It wasn't Mother's Day. What would go through your mind if your kids just said, "Hi, Mom, how about lunch on Friday?" They are pregnant. Yeah, I think that's the look. She's in her 40s now, and she's definitely past that. Not necessarily because she couldn't, but yeah, she's got one child, my granddaughter, and it's kind of something to tell you. Yes, Melanie. I mean, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, no, what do you want? That too, Lady Jane. I'm like, yeah. And so I'm sitting there, seriously, Taylor, illness. I'm thinking, oh my God, do we have bad news about somebody? They want money. You know, she's got money. That's not an issue with her. I always feel the worst. Seriously. So I'm sitting here. It was last night. So we're talking Tuesday. She would have lunch with me on Friday. I'm like, sure, I'm available. And then I'm thinking, what the hell? Why does she want to have lunch with me on Friday? And I'm like freaking out. I'm absolutely freaking out because, you know, she's a graphic designer, which she's not. But anyway, so I finally said, is everything okay? Because I couldn't stand going through Wednesday and Thursday worrying about what the heck this lunch was going to be about. You know, you're going to tell me something really awful. And she goes, no, I just want to celebrate. And I'm like, oh my God, that's right. On Friday, she reaches her 20th year. It's her retirement day from the Prince George's Police Department. She's a detective at Prince George's Police Department. She's no graphic designer. She's been with the police department for 20 years and been a detective for over a decade. And I'm like, oh yeah, I completely forgot. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, cool. I'm happy to go celebrate with you. Now, she's not retiring because she's analyzing all her issues about, you know, you can stay on longer, you can make more money. There's all these things you can do. And the police department really wants her to stay on. So she probably will stay on for a while, but she could retire on Friday. So it's like, I freaked out. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, no, she's not actually at this point, but yeah. But scared the crap out of me. And that's the way, when your kids come up and suddenly come out of the blue and say something, you're like, oh my God, what is going on? What don't I know? I mean, it freaks me out. So, I think we all go through that. Anyway, that's what's happening with Jennifer, the Jennifer, the graphic designer, my son over here, who is absolutely not a computer guy, and my son David, who has now been renamed Cinnamon by Grok. He's Cinnamon, and apparently instead of being into economics and politics, he is now an animal rights activist and takes care of animals, which is cool, but it's not him. So it's absolutely silly. So it's like, hi, Cinnamon. Yeah, he's not really happy about that. But anyway, so okay, so a couple other things. A sad news. I do have sad news from next door. So I forgot to put this up, but this is my granddaughter when she was a baby, and this is her dog. This is Gus, and the deal was between my daughter and her husband, because he already had a grown son, and she's like, I want to have. He was like, I'm going to be a bachelor forever. So this is a funny story. So he was like, I'm done getting married. I've already raised a son. So I'm a bachelor. I'm going to build a bachelor pad. I'm going to build I'm going to have a place where I can fix cars, because he loves old cars and stuff. I'm going to have a lift in there and everything, big, huge, high garage. And I'm going to have my bachelor pad above it. And then he met my daughter, and and that all went to hell. I mean, he married my daughter, and she's like, I kind of want a kid. And he's like, okay, we'll make you a deal. We'll have one kid if I get a dog. So anyway, his grandmother was laughing. It's like, your bachelor life just went out the window. And they've been married now for, oh my God, what is it? My granddaughter's turning 11, about 13 years now, and they're doing fine. They live next door to me, and they built their own house, and not the bachelor pad, but she got extra stuff, But the joke was, she gets the child, he gets the dog. Now, of course, he had my granddaughter, who I will not show the present picture of, wraps him around her little finger, and he's just absolutely, she's got her daddy under her control. He adores her. But then they got the dog. And so Gus just passed away a few days ago. And one of the best dogs ever. Such a sweet dog. Just absolutely sweet. I think, no, that's not okay. He has his own little chair. Just the sweetest guy. And he was starting to have, his German Shepherd, so he was having trouble with his legs. He couldn't move his legs. And but my daughter was trying to decide what to do, whether she should have a vet come out and put him down, but with them sitting around him in his own home. That was kind of her plan. And she and her husband went for his 50th anniversary in Belize. So they were away. So I spent time with my granddaughter and the dogs. And she came back, and the night she came back, Gus was like seeming like a bit off. So they spent time with him and hugged him and cuddled with him. And he died during the night. And so they never had to call the vet out, but they got to be with him as he passed away. And I think he was waiting for them to come home. Just the sweetest dog ever. Anyway, I'm not even a dog person, but Gus is the nicest dog ever. Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, but it's nice when you can do it in a nice way. Yeah, it is hard at any age. He did live his full life. So, but yes, and some way kind of cool that they didn't have to bring the vet out, that he just waited for them to come home. It was kind of cool, but great dog. And he grew up with my granddaughter, and it was kind of just the two of them were almost like, little siblings, because she's not an only child. She has an older brother, but growing up in the home, she did not have her older brother in the home because he was already an adult. So anyway, that's just something sweet. And just to mention, because everybody's going to ask me about my feral cat. Feral cat. Here he is. Okay. Ignore my bra on the in the clothes basket. But there he is, and this is the first time I've taken a picture of him from this position, because he let me get out of the bed and sit on the floor, kind of near him. He wasn't happy about it, but he let me do it. So that was kind of like progress with the feral cat thing. It's like he let me sit on the floor. And then the other thing he's been doing lately, after giving me the stink eye and caring less about me and not letting me touch him, but other than that, the other day, he's been letting me walk around near him without racing out the cat door. So he's getting a little more comfortable with me moving around. And so the other day, I opened the door in the middle of the night, and he was like eating the food nearby the door. And he looked at me and he backed up. And I'm like, I'm just going to the bathroom. So I went around the corner really slowly, went to the bathroom, and he didn't run away. And then I came out of the bathroom. He was still eating because I left the bathroom door open. I'm like looking at him, and he's still eating. And I'm like, okay, now I'm coming out of the bathroom. And as soon as I got up and opened the door, he went, but he stayed there, and I walked around the corner. So if anybody understands animal behavior, for a feral cat, he's allowing me to sit on the floor near him and walk around. This is major. He won't let me touch him still. I tried to like slowly like touch his head, and he went, so he's not there yet. But no, this is my experiment, because I never went to Africa to spend time with Diane Fossey and the gorillas. So this is my cheaper version, although he's costing me a lot of money. That feral cat is getting really good food. But Mac is still hanging around, and it's interesting to watch. I'm just fascinated. I'm just always fascinated by progress. Well, it may be, it may not be, but I'm just finding it interesting. So anyway, that's feral cat information, and his food is right down beside me, because at 5 o'clock he usually rolls through. And now he's been rolling through when it's more daylight than night. No, before he only came in the dark. And now he's coming a little earlier. So I think he's getting more comfortable. So he'll come earlier, and then he's like, where's the food? I'm like, I haven't put it out yet, and he will let me walk to the kitchen and put the food out for him. So he is getting a little more comfortable. Okay, last thing before I go to crime. I haven't done any paintings in a while, but I just did this one. Funny thing was, I did this painting. It was a pastel painting of a road with trees and mountains, and I worked on it for like 4 hours, 5 hours. I went to my classes and worked on it, and I just hated it. I mean, it was okay. Everybody's like, it's nice. I'm like, no, I just don't love it. So one day I just went, and so now this is what I put on top of it. So my landscape turned into a tokay gecko, and you know me. I love lizards, so I'm really happy to have the tokay gecko instead of the landscape. The minute I did that and wiped it out, which goes to show sometimes in life you need to wipe whatever the hell out is annoying you. So I just wiped it out, and I made a tokay gecko instead. Isn't he cute? There's a little bit tokay gecko. I love him. I absolutely adore him. So I'm glad I got rid of the freaking landscape. Thank you very much. I will let you know, Martina, that tokay geckos are not nice human beings. Not human beings. Not nice lizards. This is really what a tokay gecko is like. They are the nastiest geckos ever. And I like lizards. You know me. I love lizards. And I've had iguanas, and I've had rainbow lizards, and I've had what else have I had? I've had a bunch of them. A nose, and I've had I'm blank. I'm gonna sit here and blank. What's my last one? I've had lots of lizards. And I had a tokay gecko, and I was in California with my little granddaughter. I'm sorry, my daughter. I'll go back a few more years. So I had my daughter was just born in California, and we lived in this really shabby kind of like ghetto apartment, and there were freaking cockroaches everywhere when we moved in. It was cheap, and it was California, so palm trees outside, sunny, but cockroaches. And I'm like, I don't want them to come in here and spray chemicals. So I looked it up. I found that tokay geckos would eat all the roaches. So I went to this pet shop, and they had one of these. Pretty. They're real pretty. They're bright turquoise blue with the little red spots and the big eyes. They're so cute. And I said, oh, I want one of those so I can put it on the wall, and they'll eat all the roaches. And then the guy got a a big, huge bag and a big stick. And he's like, I'm like, what the hell? Because normally I was just going to pick up the gecko. And he's like, oh, no. And so he's like pushing the gecko in the bag. And it's like, I'm like, holy crap. So anyway, I brought the thing home. And I just took the bag and like chucked it across the room. And the thing went, but then went up my walls. And we lived there for a year. And that tokay gecko ate everything. I mean, we had no cockroach problem. Every night that thing would go around the walls and eat all the roaches. It was I didn't even have to feed my pet, and it was beautiful. I really thought the gecko was cute. And then I moved back to the East Coast, and I had to actually take the gecko with me. So the problem was, unlike all the other lizards I've ever owned, I did what that guy did. I'm like, get the stick out in the bag. I took the gecko back on a Greyhound bus. And along with the iguana that I also took on the Greyhound bus. And the iguana was I had a formula bag. I was a young girl, I was 24 years old, had my little baby, 25, had my little baby. I was nursing my baby. I had my little formula bag with me with the iguana and the other one, the tokay gecko was up in the luggage. And I took the Greyhound across the U.S. because I couldn't bring my lizards on the plane. And like a day into my trip from California to Virginia, this guy goes in the middle of the night, what's really in the formula bag, lady? Because he was like, I know that's not formula because you keep nursing your baby and you keep taking the formula bag with you. And he was like, he was looking for drugs. I'm pretty sure he thought I had weed in there or something. And I'm like, do you really want to know? And he was like, yeah. And I opened it up and he goes, oh crap. Anyway, if you go to my Facebook, my Amazon page, I do have a 99-cent story about that called Me, Abe, and Greyhound You, which is a fictionalized version of that story. But anyway, I brought the tokay gecko home, and then I had to feed it, I had to feed it crickets, and so I'm a really weird person. Oh my God, I'm so legless. Oh, you got wait a minute. Okay, you had a leg. Okay. Tassel says, I ended up with a legless lizard that leaped out of a fire in a gully. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. Now, a legless lizard, in case you don't know, I don't know what you're talking about, but a legless lizard is a lizard that looks like a snake but doesn't have legs. It moves like this. It like throws its body from side to side as opposed to a snake. And it's a lizard. It's got a lizard face and my ex-husband, when we were married, said I could have any animal I wanted, but no snakes, because he hated snakes. So I brought home a legless lizard, and he was all ticked off at me. He's like, that's a snake. I'm like, no, it's a lizard. And it was a lizard, but he never forgave me for that. A Chinese red-bellied toad for 30 years. Sir, you have a toad that lives for 30 years? Do they live that long? I've had toads, but never one for that. Harper says, sounds like a plot to a tragic comedy movie. Speaking of movies, let me move on. Speaking of movies, I will mention this as I start the show because Oscars just happened. And I have been very vocal about the issue of prostitution in the United States and the world. And my feeling that a lot of times it's misunderstood and misrepresented in a way that my opinion isn't particularly popular. My opinion is this, that there are many men and women and children across the world who are forced into prostitution, either because they are abducted into prostitution, and that would be in countries like Bangladesh, India, some places in Central America. There's places where it happens, where a person has no choice, that they're forced into prostitution. Or they go into prostitution because they have no choice, because they need food. They need to survive. And that, again, is a lot of third world countries have this issue that the poverty is so extreme that women who end up in certain situations, this is the choice they make. And men too. And they end up, and sometimes their children end up very young into the life of prostitution. And I have all the care in the world for them, because this is a horrible situation that we need to address. In the United States, we have homeless people, drug users, runaways. These are the issues that are most important in the United States that we need to deal with as far as prostitution goes, because you're people who are desperate. It's not a pleasant field. It's not the people who are in that situation are not having fun being prostitutes. They're not. People like to call everybody sex workers these days as if it's some kind of cool job. And I disagree with that, because we have people who are truly in this business because they can't figure out how to survive. Those people, I think we ought to pay attention to and have a lot of respect for. There are other people who go into sex work because they think it's an option, because it makes more money than regular work, especially when you get on OnlyFans, but many other places as well. There could be massage parlors. It can be go-go dancers, strippers, and lap dancers. And this has become a thing where people, and that often in that situation, people choose to be involved because of the money that they get. And while I understand why women, especially women, do this, because the money is very tempting, it's a tragic life to be involved in. And people making it sound like it's something cool really pisses me off, because it's not. It's not cool for society. It's not cool for them. It takes away their it's not cool. So anyway, the Oscars came up, and this is the Oscar that won. Okay, so the Oscar that won was a movie called Anora, about prostitution. And I was at least pleased that she was supposedly a lap dancer in the show. And at least they showed how that lap dancing is. A lot of times people say she's only lap dancing. She's not involved in prostitution. Only a stripper is not involved in prostitution. Guarantee you, almost all people who are involved in these things are involved in prostitution. Why? Because that's what the owners of these places want them to be. Because a lot of these people who come in to get these services aren't going to be happy with just part of the services. They want the rest of them. And so the guy the owner acts like a pimp, in the sense that he's providing a location for Johns to meet prostitutes, and then they make money there, and then the girls make the guys happier elsewhere. And that's why the guys come back, because if they're not going to keep coming back if they don't get what they want. So the boss will often say to the girls, if you don't provide what these guys want outside of my institution, you're not going to be working here. So it's a complicated situation. But anyway, Anora is this kind of updated version where a young woman who's working in prostitution has this opportunity to suddenly get this fairy tale ending. Now I'm going to ask you guys, what is the movie that had the fairy tale ending? Does anybody remember? I just want to see if you remember. Which movie was it that was so nice, with Julia Roberts, with a wonderful fairy tale ending, which is a fun movie, mind you. I'm waiting. Thank you. Okay. Lazanush has it, Pretty Woman. Okay, that's a fun movie. And it's fun in the sense that you see her, Julia Roberts, as a prostitute with a heart of gold. And there's a lot of movies like this. And it's not that prostitutes cannot have a heart of gold. It's just this is the way movies like to present it. Therefore, the rich man can fall in love with a woman who is selling her body. And then she can get the fairy tale ending. And it's just sweet. It's sweet. This movie is not quite that story. And so Anora won the Oscars for best film. I think what's her? Let me put her picture up here. One of my favorite movies. It is a cute movie. It is. I have to say that. So Anora, let me put her picture up. This is Mikey Madison. It was very pretty, and I really liked the way she did a good job. The movie getting an Oscar concerned me because I just watched it last night, and I found it really too long and boring at certain points, and way too much. The concept that you have to constantly show people having sex, I think, is unnecessary. Pretty Woman did it without the crudeness, and I thought this spent a lot of time showing girls naked on top of men's laps and having sex with. It just was a lot of sex, so it's pornographic. It seems to be cool these days, and they presented her as a girl who had this job, which is perfectly cool, but she fell for this Russian oligarch's son who wanted to marry her when he's on his bender, and she goes ahead and marries him because she likes him, and so she thinks, what the heck? And then I'm not going to tell you the end of the story. However, there were some funny things about it that I liked, but I found it was dragged out too long. I didn't find it worth Oscar material, and I'm not sure why it was Oscar material. It's interesting, but I wouldn't watch it twice. Let me put it that way. It had some cool parts to it, and then the rest of it was like, eh. And the concept in the end is that she's a real person who has feelings. Okay. All right. And so it's funny because sex workers have these. Some sex workers liked it because they presented her as a human being, and other sex workers like, hey, you're not presenting this properly. So there's a huge argument over it. Let me talk about the other one that almost made it. Emilia Perez was up for contention until Carla Sofia Gascon, the star of the show, unfortunately said some things in Spanish on social media, and I don't entirely agree nor do entirely disagree with what she/he said. Okay, and I only say that because the star of the show was once a male telenovela actor in Mexico. He is at the top, and damn is he hot. But he's become a woman of sorts at the bottom, and I have to say, my opinion is doesn't make the greatest looking woman. But having said that, I will say I liked that movie, and it was kind of funny because the difference was that movie had cartels in it, had a trans issue in it, it had a whole bunch of weird issues in it. It was like a musical. People were like, what the hell? And I thought it was quirky, weird, and oddly interesting. They actually did not try to push any kind of agenda. It was just a thing. It was just a movie, and I really liked it. I actually did like it in a strange, weird way. Does it deserve an Oscar? I don't know, but I actually liked it better than the other movie. So, as a profiler, one of the problems I have as a profiler, criminal profiler, a lot of times I look at, are they trying to present something in a way that I find is factually correct, or are they trying to present something that is popular but not necessarily factually correct? And so I think what happened with the Anora is it was kind of one of those things that I did not think was. I did appreciate the fact, I will say this, I appreciate the fact that while they showed her as a lap dancer, they also showed her as a prostitute, which I was very relieved to see because that is reality. And the other one, it's so quirky and weird that you're not going to say, oh, this would happen in real life necessarily. It's just a bizarre little movie. So, which, yeah, I would like that too. Politics, it would be nice if it stayed out. I hate musicals. Well, Michaela, I like musicals. This one was not really a musical, but it was funny in the sense that whoever made this was like, he had a really weird sense of humor. And so when you had the musical part, you're like, it's so off and weird. It's like, you're kind of like, okay, it's like strange, but it was kind of interesting, shall we say. But yeah. Michaela says, and she had sex with some Tommy Chong. No, I didn't, but if you want to find out about that, I did a video on how the whole Tommy Chong incident. Yes. Okay. Oh, do I have an opinion on? No, I'm getting there, Clarissa. Do I have an opinion on Gene Hackman? No. And I'll tell you why I don't. Because here's the problem I see happening all over the place. The problem is that, in case you don't know, that's Gene Hackman and his wife. What bugs the hell out of me is Gene Hackman's 95. His wife was, I think, 64. They've been married for 2 decades. So they obviously had a good thing going. And they're both ending up dead along with their dog in their home. And everything is about Gene Hackman as, oh, that's so sad that Gene Hackman died. I'm like, the dude's 95. If I make it in 95 and kick off, I'm okay. However, she's only like, what, 64, 65? She's young, in my opinion, since I'm 69. I'm like, why is nobody focusing on why is she dead? Why is his wife dead? That to me is a real issue here. Do I have an opinion? The dog, from what I've heard recently, and we don't, this is the problem. And the reason I won't do a whole video on it, we do not have information from the police as of yet. Supposedly, carbon monoxide poisoning is not the issue. There were some drugs on the counter that weren't like serious drugs. They were like drugs for like, you know, physical issues, not like narcotics or anything. So we don't have the autopsies back as to anything yet. What we do have is, so I'm not going to do a whole video on something. I've seen tons of people coming out and doing all these videos on, oh, this is what happened. You don't know. You haven't got a freaking clue, and I haven't got a freaking clue. Because there's a bunch of options here. The dog, the only thing I can say is the dog was supposedly, now originally I heard the dog was running around. It was dead in the closet. That's what I heard. Then there were two dogs outside. The dog that's dead was a German Shepherd, like our Gus, was in a cage, but he was an old dog like our Gus as well. So now the question comes down to is, what if he was in his cage thing? Was he there because he has problems with maybe because when you get a dog that old, I mean, Gus was like crapping every place. I mean, so did they have him there at certain times to keep him from crapping all over the house, just to protect protective measure, maybe even? Did they die, and therefore the reason that their dog died was because once they died, there was no way to feed or give him water, as opposed to the dogs that were outside who had some freedom. And he wasn't inside to eat them. So, you know, it was advantageous. Although dogs tend to lie down next to you and look sympathetic, whereas a cat will go, yeah, you're gone. So, hey, I'm going to take advantage of you. So, but we don't know why the adults died. You know, it's not like the dog died, had anything to do with the adults dying. The humans died. So the humans died. A 95-year-old man with his sunglasses on and just collapsed on the floor, completely clothed. Bunches of possibilities. One could simply be a heart attack. He fell over. Another could be, there's so many possibilities. As far as his wife goes, she's younger. That's where the issue comes in. Why is she dead? And there's people who think, well, it could be murder-suicide. It could be, or it could be death-suicide. Like she saw her husband die and she found him dead on the floor and she couldn't go on without him, so she killed herself. Possible? I don't know. Possibly. Or did she die for some reason and he just saw her on the floor and freaked out and had a heart attack and died? I don't know. And because I don't know, because I don't have a thing called evidence, I can't go any further with it. And you know, I think speculating without evidence is kind of pointless. I mean, I can say there's a bunch of possibilities, but other than that, I can't go any further with that. But why she's dead at that young age is the real question. Yes, Allison says, I've been thinking about the same thing about the Hackmans. 95 is a good age, where his wife was much younger. A whole lot younger. It's like 30 years younger. That's not a normal age for somebody to die who's been healthy. So that is going to be the big issue, I think. And not, you know, but they're really ignoring her in the media. It's like, oh, she doesn't matter. It's like, why did Gene Hackman die? I'm like, dude's 95. What did you expect? You know, I mean, I say if I make it 95, I'm going to be pretty thrilled. And the important thing is who died first. Well, no, the important thing is, did anybody die of anything unnatural? That's the real issue. If everybody died of something natural, it doesn't matter. If somebody died of something unnatural, then it matters. So this is an interesting question, Mark. I like this question. The question is why the person who was alive longer didn't call 911. There was a reason. There was a theory of carbon monoxide, which has actually killed off a bunch of people recently, because that would explain why there was a sudden death of both of them and the dog. I mean, I like the carbon monoxide thing. I'm really good with that, except they say that's not what happened. But that would make total freaking sense, that all of them died from that. But if they didn't die at the same time, then what? Why didn't somebody call 911? Is it because one was dead and the other one didn't want to live further? Because if the person's dead, sometimes a person's dead, and when they call 911, you actually wonder why they called 911. It's like, okay, you might call and say, look, the person's dead, and that's fine. But I've seen people make the phone call. It's like, help, and the person's they're like this, they've been like this for like 4 hours. I mean, we know you're not going to bring them back to life, and are you covering up a murder, or are you just not, are you in denial? What's your issue? But if somebody didn't want to go on without the other one, it is possible that they just didn't. And that's why they didn't call 911, because they did not want to survive. But we don't know what the cause of death is at all yet at this point in time. It's possible. It could have had a heart attack when discovering her. There's all kinds of speculation about how close a couple they were and how much they loved each other and blah, 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 blah. And they were kind of isolationists. They were out. I think they were in they're in New Mexico, right? Got the name of the town now. Tell me if you know. But it's kind of an arty town, and they found it was comfortable there because people let them be normal people, but they just didn't want to be in the limelight. And by the way, he could paint. I mean, I was real impressed by his painting. Oh my God, some gorgeous stuff he did. He was talented. They were reclusive, yes. What does that mean? We don't actually know. Santa Fe, thank you. I have been to Santa Fe. I've visited Santa Fe before. A lot of people really love Santa Fe. No, it's not El Paso, it's Santa Fe. El Paso's in Texas, Santa Fe is in New Mexico, and it's an arty town. It kind of pretends to be a Mexican town, but it's not a Mexican town. It's fake Mexico. It's definitely not. But it's an arty town, and so it's a place where a lot of people feel that they can live there peacefully. And so I think that's why they chose it. But let's wait and see, because we have no freaking clue. And so I'm not going to give an opinion because I just don't know. Okay, so now, let's see. Somebody asked me to look into, hold on a second. By the way, last time I was like, I couldn't find my stuff in order. So I put everything in order today. I did, theoretically. So that I would make it easier for me to not misplace things. Okay, hold on. But now I'm having trouble with, okay. Oh, let's go to her. Oh, not her. See? No, I have everything else in order. I just have I have my pictures out of order now. What? Okay, hold on a second. My pictures are out of order, but where is my picture? Oh, come on. No, don't do this to me. There she is. Okay, sorry, it's hard to see. Okay, Casey Anthony. So Casey Anthony has popped back into life, let's say, onto TikTok. And she did this video, which is pretty funny, because she's now saying she's going to be a legal advocate. And if you go to TikTok, at the Casey Anthony thing on TikTok, it's funny as hell. They tore her up. I mean, on the legal stuff, because they're like, you're a legal advocate? Seriously? So everybody's really, really, really pissed off. Now let me go to my photos, because I took a bunch of pictures of some of the comments, and they're pretty funny. So most people are going for the comments now and not for what she said. But the gall, the audacity, and I've said this more than once, that I strongly believe that when you have done something appalling, go live a private life somewhere else. Don't come back and go back into the public eye, because a lot of people are narcissists, and that's why they do that. But to me, a lot of times when you committed some kind of crime that you should just be embarrassed about, just go live a private life. The people around you may accept that you did something stupid or something really wrong, but live your private life, but don't come back and expect everybody else to accept your previously crappy behavior. So she's rebranding herself. Essentially, what's happening. This is my favorite comment. Casey Anthony rebranding herself as a legal advocate is like Jeffrey Dahmer opening a steakhouse. This person says, quote, been in the legal field since 2011. Girl, you were on trial. She was in the legal field. Yeah, you were. But you're being tried for murder. That's why you're in the legal field, along with your friend OJ. This one says here, this comment section didn't let me down, and it doesn't. If you go there, it's pretty funny. You can't be a voice for someone when you took a voice away. Absolutely. Then she says in her video, she's like, oh, she's in her car. And she says she's going to continue to be in her car because she doesn't want to give up her address. So she's going to be doing all her videos from her car. And she goes, oh, I'm going to sweat to death. The collective internet, please do. Anyway, but just so you know, be careful, because she has also stated, where is it? Okay, I didn't write down her. She also stated, she put up a comment that said, if you libel me, I will come after you legally. In other words, if you have the audacity to say I killed my daughter, I will come after you. Now, it's an interesting problem because although a jury foolishly found her not guilty of killing her daughter, and premeditatedly, which I think the evidence does support, not that there was any accident. And I will link my video below on Casey Anthony, where I believe the evidence supports that that child was purposely killed. Now, she is not legally found. She was not legally found guilty. I'm just saying, as a profiler, I found the evidence supported that scenario, and I stand by that. But it doesn't mean that my opinion is necessarily correct. So, Casey Anthony, try not to sue me, because I will take you to court. I will, and I will fight back. But anyway, because it's an opinion, it's a profiler does an analysis, and the analysis based on evidence is simply an opinion. I have a right to have an opinion. I'm not saying you're guilty of killing your daughter or guilty of premeditatedly killing your daughter. I'm just saying the evidence supports that more than any other theory. But the jury, being a civilian jury, which I have issues with, thought differently. But she's back. Now, how successful she's going to be is questionable as far as a return to society as a legal advocate. I'm sorry, I got to take a moment here. A legal advocate. She's hoping people forgot by now. One thing you see in the comments, Tammy, is that nobody has forgotten. I think that two of the biggest cases, O.J. Simpson, people do not forget. And Casey Anthony, people do not forget. And I think they didn't forget it because of her atrocious behavior of not reporting the missing daughter for so many days. And her absolute outrageous behavior, her arrogance, her attitude, people did not forget that. And also because people believed that there was no question she would be found guilty. This is not one of these questions of, maybe she's not guilty. Pretty much everybody thought she was. I mean, Jose Baez, I'll give him credit that he's a very good defense attorney, and threw her father under the bus. And she was like, okay, that's good. Throw my father under the bus. And she says she's going to be talking about her parents in the future. So God knows what she's going to do to them. But the claim that, somehow Kaylee drowned and her father was responsible. And poor Casey, I think nobody bought that story, except maybe the jury was influenced enough by Jose Baez, where they said, that sliver of a doubt. It's not supposed to be that, by the way. Reasonable doubt. But not no. Reasonable doubt is where normal people would look at all the evidence and say, She was responsible for the death of her daughter. And then you have the shadow of a doubt. Shadow of a doubt is not a terminology. It's reasonable, not shadow of a doubt. Because if you go for shadow of a doubt, and here's what I'm going to talk about in a bit. We have had an excessive amount of shadow of a doubt rolling across case after case after case. And it's being used by defense attorneys, Innocence Project people, and scientists to throw shadows of a doubt. Like, if there's one case in 1,000, we got to let this person off. And I'm ticked at that, because that is not what our system is about. It's about reasonable doubt. And I think most people felt there was no reasonable doubt that Casey Anthony killed her daughter. And I tell you, this is one of the few days I remember. I remember 2 times when I reacted to a not guilty plea. One was O.J. Simpson, because I was working in Washington, D.C. I was a sign language interpreter at the time. I was in the ER. And when he got found not guilty, the entire ER cheered. Very political thing. And I remember going, oh my God, are you guys kidding? And I was appalled. But Casey Anthony, I was at home. I was in my living room. And I remember when they found her not guilty, I literally opened the door to my house and walked out on the porch. I was so upset, because I was like, you got to be kidding me. It just blew my mind, because the evidence was so, I don't care what people say, oh, the prosecution should have done this and should have done that. My God, people expect a prosecution to be some kind of Hollywood prosecution where every single person, they're in the court, they're so spectacular. It's not Hollywood. They're just regular prosecutors who are trying a case. And a defense attorney like Jose Baez can do things to the jury's mind that no matter what the prosecution does, can turn them. And I was 100% appalled that the jury found her not guilty. I mean, I'm like, this is one of those cases where if you find her not guilty, we might as well just let everybody out of prison. Anyway, yeah. Oh, thank you, Mike. Shadow of a doubt is not a scientific term. Well, neither is reasonable doubt. Neither one are scientific terms. They're legal terms. Reasonable doubt is what a reasonable person would come to a conclusion. Now, it's interesting, because I will say that in my opinion, the problem we're having with civilian juries is they can't come to a reasonable conclusion anymore, because they first have no training. I say again, over and over again, 12 people off a bus stop. There are 12 people who are in there. And even if 7 of them are great, there could be 5 that aren't. There could be 10 that are great and 2 that aren't. There could be 11 that are great and 1 that isn't. All you need is somebody who can be convinced emotionally, just get confused, anything. They will come up with, quote, reasonable doubt, when there isn't really any. But that's because they're not trained in crime analysis and psychological analysis, and they don't understand these things. Bless their hearts. I'm not against, everybody thinks I'm like attacking the jury. No, I feel sorry for the freaking jury, because being on a jury for one of these freaking long cases, it's not, you don't get paid. You're sitting there for hours on end of incredibly boring crap. Most of it is boring as all get out. I don't know how you stay awake. A lot of times most time you're not allowed to take notes in the United States. So you're supposed to remember everything, and I can't remember anything that happened yesterday. So how the hell would I make it through a 30-day trial and remember all this shit? Then you go into a room with a bunch of people and you have a big fat argument like you're in high school. I feel sorry for everybody on a jury. I think it's horrific. I think people should be paid. I think it should be professional. I will again say I'm for a professional jury. So, but be careful what you say about Casey Anthony, because that could be a problem. Okay. Now, one of the things I was asked about, which kind of reminds me of the Casey Anthony thing, in a way, and if everything is in order here, it'll be the next thing here. Oh, it is. Oh, look at that. I did it right. Okay. It is. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Okay. I just want to point out, before I go to the next one, I do. Do you remember Cameron Todd Willingham? Cameron Todd Willingham, I do think, here he is. I do have a picture of him. There he is. He was executed at age 36 in Huntsville, Texas. He was found guilty of burning up his children in the home. I try to remember to link it below. I did a thing on Cameron Todd Willingham, who I think is guilty as all get out. Now, it says here, he was an American man who was convicted and executed for the murder of his 3 young children by arson at the family home in Corsicana, Texas in 1991. Since his execution in 2004, significant controversy has arisen over the legitimacy of the guilty verdict and the interpretation of the evidence that was used to convict him of arson and murder. And here we have where we have arson, quote, scientists roll through and say, oh, that's not what happened. Now, I'm having a real issue with scientists these days who, I don't know who they're bought by. They may not even be bought. They may just be thinking they're doing a good thing because they want to go against the government. They want to go against prosecutions. They want to say, oh, that person was really innocent, because the Innocence Project will find those people. And they will bring in these scientists who will then say, he really didn't kill his children. This poor innocent man who loved his children just burnt them all up. Didn't burn them all up. No, he's totally innocent. And so now we have, he got killed. He got murdered. Not murdered. He got executed. Sorry. He murdered his children. He got executed. But let's go to this Innocence Project crapola. So the Innocence Project, a 4-person panel of the Texas Forensic Science Commission investigating evidence of arson presented in the case acknowledged on July 23rd, 2010 that state and local arson investigators used, quote, flawed science in determining that the blaze had been deliberately set. Oh, of course I did. In 2010, the Innocence Project filed a lawsuit against the state of Texas. I examined that case. I do not see it was flawed. The problem we have is that we have so much information and so much ability to put out claims against people these days that you can take a case that has been adjudicated, done with, and you can always find somebody to say they were wrong. The police were wrong. The prosecutors were wrong. The scientists were wrong. Those scientists are wrong. We're the scientists who say it's right. You can always find that. So now we have another one that's just come up. What is this? Okay. This is Richard Glossip. I'll try to remember to link it below. Richard Glossip. As this just came out. Where's Richard? Here he is, this piece of crap. The U.S. Supreme Court has ordered a new trial for Richard Glossip, an Oklahoma man on death row. Again, the Innocence Project strikes because they don't care about the truth. They care about getting people off death row. The U.S. Supreme Court, this just came out 25th of February. This is brand new. The U.S. Supreme Court, I don't know how it got all of the Supreme Court, but somehow it did, has ordered a new trial for Richard Glossip, an Oklahoma man on death row. The court ruled 5-3 in favor of Glossip, reversing an Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals ruling. The move comes after the state Republican Attorney General joined Glossip in calling for a new trial. Glossip, 62, was convicted in 1997 of the murder of the owner of an Oklahoma City motel where he worked. He had 9 execution dates postponed and eaten his last meal 3 times. One of the problems we have is that if you're going to execute somebody, maybe you should get to it. Anyway, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote in Tuesday's opinion for the court, "We conclude that the prosecution violated its constitutional obligation to correct false testimony." She was joined in ruling by fellow liberal justices Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson, Brett Kavanaugh, and Chief Justice John Roberts. Both conservatives also joined their opinion. And I will just say this. Sometimes what happens with these whole concepts of right and wrong, it's always political. It can actually sometimes be in the middle where, especially with the Innocence Project, people want to come on the side of what people think is nice. I'm not so nice. I don't go there. I say what I say. Whether you like me or not, I don't really give a crap. But anyway, Justice Amy Coney Barrett agreed with the opinion, but said she would have sent the case back for more proceedings. Justice Neil Gorsuch did not join the case. Don Knight, an attorney for Glossip, called the ruling a victory for justice and fairness. Now, what the hell is the issue here? Oh, he's maintained his innocence for 27 years. Yeah, but I've analyzed that case, and I don't see he's innocent at all. Click on the link. His boss, Barry Van Treese, was beaten to death with a baseball bat in 1997. He was convicted of the killing, but he said, another guy, Justin Sneed, was convicted of the killing, but he said Glossip had told him to carry out the murder, which I believe is 100% true. Sneed confessed to the murder, was able to evade execution by accepting a plea deal that testified that Glossip paid him $10,000 to do it. Now, this sounds like, oh, he's just talking crap to get out of a death penalty, but the evidence did not show that. Glossip admitted to assisting Sneed in covering up the murder after it happened, but denied knowing of a plan to kill Van Treese. Get out of here. You would want to cover up, you covered up for Sneed? Yeah, no, you didn't. It has since emerged that prosecutors did not disclose that Sneed, a methamphetamine addict, had been treated for a serious psychiatric condition. Had the prosecution corrected Sneed on the stand, his credibility would have suffered. I don't give a shit if he was a meth addict. The fact is, Glossip took advantage of Sneed because he was a meth addict. This is your entire case, that because he's a meth addict, you shouldn't have believed him? Get out of here. The correction would have revealed to the jury that not just that Sneed was untrustworthy, but that Sneed was also willing to lie to them under oath, as if people who don't have meth in their systems would ever lie under oath. And did he have meth in his system when he lied under oath? Probably not, because he was in prison. Glossip was first convicted in 1998, was overturned in 2001. He was convicted 3 years later. So the issue isn't whether Glossip is innocent. It's that whether you are allowed to, whether the state did wrong in not telling people that that the guy who actually killed him was a meth head. That's their entire case. Somehow it got to the Supreme Court, and they're with that. And now it does say here, they're asking for a new trial. I will give them some credit there, because God knows how many times I've been pissed off that there is no appeal system. There is no new trial. What they do is have some prosecutor who is in for politics simply, or some judge simply vacating the guilty plea and not even going back to trial. There's no appeal. There's no nothing. They just go, oh yeah, I think he's innocent. One person, boom, hell with anything. At least they're going back for a new trial. So I'll give them credit on that. That's the way it should be done, although I think the reason is retarded. But I will go for the fact they went at least giving him another trial. Lord. Christoph says, no idea about the Innocence Project. They support a good cause, and yet they do something wrong. Okay, let me tell you, maybe you've come in recently. The problem with the Innocence Project is they aren't about innocence. They never give a crap about innocence. They're anti-death penalty and anti the system. They're really a technicality project. They look for technicalities that will get people off. They don't care whether the person's innocent or not. Technicalities. Sometimes the technicalities are reasonable, and sometimes they're ridiculous. Sometimes they're claimed technicalities which just don't actually line up with the fact the person should be let out of prison. But sometimes they have some technicalities. This is a case where they're saying there's a technicality, that this should not have been presented the way it did in court. They withheld that he was a meth head. So that's a technicality. Doesn't mean Glossip is innocent. That's a technicality. And so the Innocence Project doesn't care about innocence. They care about using technicalities to go against the system. So they should be called the Technicality Project. And if you're going to call it that, then I can say, look, if you want to hold the system's feet to the fire, prosecutors' feet to the fire, do that. But don't call it the Innocence Project, because God knows, last week, 2 guys got out of prison. I think they're both guilty. But now they're innocent, and one guy's getting $5 million because they keep pushing this as innocence when it's not proven that the guy's innocent. It's just proven that somebody somewhere decided that maybe the case wasn't handled as well as it should have been handled. So I'm annoyed by that crap. It's just not true. So that's the basics on this for the U.S. I don't know what happens in other countries, but that kind of thing is spreading along with these prosecutorial little things that all over the world is now happening, where instead of going to the appeal, all you have to do is get some scientists that say somebody's actually, they don't think that's what happened. then let's speak of that. Let's talk about something that didn't happen. Okay. Let's see, who was my next one on this? Oh, no. Well, just to mention this, just because it's in order now. Luigi Mangione. Luigi Mangione. Such a nice name for such a piece of shit. Luigi Mangione. I want him to be a chef and not what he is. Anyway, Luigi, the 26-year-old accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last year, appeared at a status hearing at a procedural court in New York last week, and a sea of supporters waiting outside the classroom with signs of "Free Luigi! Healthcare is a human right." Now, he's pleaded not guilty. The question will be that he might get out. He might be found not guilty. Why? I thought this was kind of fascinating. A thing called jury nullification. Jury nullification is a term used to describe the situation when a jury, on the basis of their own sense of justice, their own sense of justice. In other words, not the evidence. The evidence is pretty overwhelming at this point in time. That's support. So Luigi Mangione shot this guy in cold blood, premeditated. That's what the evidence supports. I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm saying it supports that. But you get an issue of jury nullification where they decide, no matter what the evidence is, their own sense of justice, they could refuse to convict a defendant despite sufficient evidence of guilt. In many ways, American juries, this is, by the way, put out by the Hindustan Times, this is from India, but I'm appreciative of other countries looking at our justice system. In many ways, American juries nullifying a case has been supported by some and opposed by others. The concept is oddly placed in the U.S. legal system. According to a document from the U.S. Supreme Court, quote, contrary to the extreme prosecutorial ideology and culture that prevails to contemporary court practice, can you speak in English? Juror knowledge of jury nullification power is in no way improper, unethical, or destruction of justice. In fact, it says jury knowledge that juries may use, quote, jury nullification to protect Americans from tyrannical, quote, tyrannical government is the true purpose for the constitutional right and enshrinement of trial by jury. Courts should celebrate, embrace, and openly inform jurors of their absolute right to acquit, rather than seeking to deceive jurors or to conceal this knowledge and power from them. Okay, so what they're saying here is that you can ignore all the evidence if you just feel sorry for the dude and you kind of go along with the fact that glad you knocked that guy off. Look, I've said in my previous Luigi Mangione commentary, I get the issue where people say Brian Thompson being the CEO, I call it the health cartels. I call it the health cartels because, and that particular health cartel is one of the worst for ripping off consumers, not providing medical care. And all, I'm not in favor of it. However, and he's what I would call the head of a cartel. It's kind of like being a head of a Mexican cartel. You're doing stuff that is harming people. Brian Thompson, did he do things willingly that harm people? In my opinion, the answer is yes. I have questions over a guy who would be the head of an organization that does what his organization does, legal though it is. I'm not saying he did anything illegal. I'm just saying, ethically, I don't think he's as an ethical human being. However, the law states that regardless of whether you think somebody's unethical or not, doesn't give you the right to go and shoot them down in cold blood. You have to fight it in courts. You have to fight it other ways. And although I admit that it's hard as heck to fight any of these, because I've tried. I've tried going against the medical system, and I've tried going against the healthcare system, and I've pretty much failed every time, most of the time. A couple successes. But it sucks. I mean, unless we change the entire system, and that becomes a political issue, you still don't have, the law simply states because you don't like somebody and what they do, you can't go shoot them down. But now they're saying with jury nullification, you can get 12 people in there who say, we're going to ignore the evidence. We know the guy planned this. We know the evidence shows that I've got a video of it for Christ's sake, and he shot him down in cold blood. But we sympathize with the guy, and we're like, yeah, we get why you did it. You represented all of us, so we're cool with it. Mind you, Luigi Mangione was wealthy. And from time has gone by, and I have not seen one bit of information about that supposed back surgery that he had, or that if he did have back surgery, it failed, because he seemed to be perfectly fine going off and having a good time. I see nothing that supports any of his real outrage against the healthcare system, because he suffered from it. He did not suffer from the healthcare system. It's garbage. Basically, what he wanted was he got online. He liked to spout stuff that made him relevant. And in my opinion, he suffers from a severe personality disorder starting with a P. And he wants a massive attention, and he didn't get enough in his life in spite of everything. And he decided he would do this. Like a mass murderer would do something, getting attention, his day in the sun. He did this. That's my belief. That's what the evidence supports. And just because I don't like the healthcare system and maybe not be fond of Brian Thompson, still, you don't have the right to go shoot the dude down. And if our jury system can't understand that and can nullify the whole case and let him go because they sympathize with him, although he shouldn't be sympathized with, they sympathize with people suffering in the healthcare system, I don't get it. And I don't know who from the Supreme Court said this crap. But anyway, I'm concerned about that, because that is not the way our system works. And we're running into a problem in general with sympathy. Same thing with somebody kills somebody because let's say you have a bad relationship. Well, okay, let's go to the Menendez brothers. My point on them over and over again. I don't know how much sexual abuse happened. We don't have proof of that. We have one claim. I don't know. Did daddy do something inappropriate? Maybe. How often did it happen? Did it happen one time? I don't know. The point, we weren't there. But the point is, these guys grew up. They went to school. They got tons of money. They went on. They were adults, and they came back, bought weapons, and went in and blew their parents away. And now it's like, okay, we should feel sympathy for them, so we should let them out. Therefore, if you have a husband or a wife you don't like that treated you miserably, you should blow them away while they're sleeping. And then we're supposed to feel sympathy for you because they're like, that person was a horrible person. Yeah, so you think that because your feelings, your emotions align with the emotions of the person, and you don't even know if that person's telling the truth half the time. This is one of the very annoying things to me. You're getting a side of a story. It may be true, it may not be true. But the law is obvious. The law says, regardless of your freaking emotions, the only reason you have the right to shoot somebody down is because you are doing it in self-defense. If it's not self-defense, you don't have the right. That is our law. That is our system. And it's reasonable. Because otherwise you have people shooting everybody all the time because they might do something to me in the future, or they made me unhappy. I mean, you can't do that. Mangione, I don't care what his reasons were, or whether you have sympathy for people in the healthcare system. I do. But should give them the right to shoot people down. Because first of all, Brian Thompson is just going to be replaced with another sucker that's going to do the same damn thing, because you haven't actually addressed any of the system. So, you're full of crap. So, but jury nullification, interesting, weird concept that emotions should play into it. And the concept is that if this is where we're getting to, is that if the government can overwhelm, in the sense that they have this power to put people on trial that you don't think should be on trial, you can take them off of trial by, finding them, just letting them go. But much as I have issues sometimes with the system, I think we have to have a process that goes through the system. You can't just do stuff based on emotions. And it's gotten more and more like this. We see every single freaking case that comes out. Scientists roll through and say, oh, that person didn't do that. That person didn't do this. Maybe this, maybe that. And then we go, oh my God, maybe that. And the government's just so mean. So we've gotten to this point where we don't have it. We're losing the process to a whole lot of emotions and a whole lot of stuff that's happening with like the Innocence Project defense attorneys have incredible amount of power, especially with the internet, that they can go out there and start all these people with protests and all this stuff on things they don't freaking understand. And they're there for emotions. And I recognize their emotions may be kind, but it doesn't mean they're right. So, yeah. So anyway, I'm just looking for some of your comments. Yeah. There's always kind of a mix of issues, but the problem with a mix of issues is we have to be able to separate those issues, and I think that's one of the things we're not doing. And speaking of that, we have another person. Let's look at this case. All right, so this case, somebody asked me to talk about that because of the Lucy Leppi case. No, not Lucy Leppi. Sorry, the woman who was a woman who in the U.S. who killed the other baby. Now this one is Louise Woodward. See, I have it in order. I actually can find it. And this is Louise Woodward, and she killed. Oh no, sorry. She was convicted of killing this little baby there. All right, now. What happened in this case? Okay, Louise Woodward was born in 1978, a British former au pair who at the age of 18 was charged with murder, but was subsequently convicted of involuntary manslaughter, reduced from the jury trial verdict. And here's an interesting thing. The jury decided this, and they reduced it. The judge reduced it to a verdict, an 8-month-old, reduced it to involuntary manslaughter. Now, mind you, I will actually agree, by the way. I do think it was manslaughter. I do not think it was murder. I agree. Not that I don't think it deserves a good amount of time, mind you. The little baby supposedly died of I'm going to say supposedly just because all the scientists are rolling through again, from a fractured skull and subdural hematoma, and had a previously unnoticed fractured wrist. Although Woodward was initially found guilty of second-degree murder, Judge Hiller B. Zobel reduced her conviction to involuntary manslaughter during a post-conviction relief hearing, leading to her release after 279 days. Now I got issues. 270. She was there for less than a year. You killed a baby. You killed somebody's child, their son. You took away a person's life. He was a baby, but his life was all ahead, and you took that away. You took away these parents' child. You took away I think it's his sister. I don't know who. I think it's a brother. You took away the brother of the other child. You get 279 days. What the hell, Judge? Okay. So she returned to the United Kingdom. She began a career in law. She's probably going to get Casey Anthony to hang out with her. And later, ballroom and Latin dance teaching. Okay, so. In 2022, a Channel 4 documentary revisited the case, because that's what all television does, with a civil rights lawyer, of course, questioning the validity of the shaken baby syndrome accusation. Okay, so now we have the scientists rolling through again. And the shaken baby thing has become a new popular, when a baby ends up dying in somebody's care in a way that it's interesting. It's always in their care, not somebody else's care. Shaken baby syndrome never happens at the doctor's office with the doctor. It never happens in certain places. It always happens with mommy or the care person in a private location. It's very convenient. But anyway, 5 days after being admitted to Children's Hospital, Matthew, I think the name is Eappen, I'm not sure, Eappen, fell into a coma after being removed from life support and died on February 9th, 1987, as a result of a fractured skull and a subdural hematoma. He was also found to have a fractured wrist, an unnoticed and unexplained injury from a month earlier. Now, I'm trying to figure out whether she was there a month earlier. I'm not sure about that. Okay, because I haven't looked at the whole case, but the thing I'm going to comment on is there a reasonable reason to think she's innocent? Okay, there were also retinal hemorrhages, judged characteristic of shaken baby syndrome. Now, what's interesting to me is a whole bunch of scientists have worked on shaken baby syndrome forever. But now a whole bunch of new scientists are saying it's nonsense, we're always told to trust the science, but which scientists? The ones here or the ones there? So it, all depending on culture and politics is which scientists you're supposed to believe. We have a whole bunch of new scientists coming out who seem to want to get everybody out of prison. So we're supposed to believe these scientists, not the original ones. See how that works? Okay. So anyway, she was arrested by police, held for assault and battery. Initially, then murder when Matthew died. All right. She said that she, quote, popped the baby on the bed, which she said at trial meant the same as laid the baby on the bed. Now, this again could be a British term. And I don't have a problem with that. Pop the baby on the bed, put the baby on the bed, toss the baby on the bed. The question is, how much did she pop the baby on the bed, toss the baby on the bed, put the baby on the bed? And we'll never know. Was it just a way of a British method of speaking, or did it mean more? And I don't think to have the damage that the baby had, I'm going to say, I don't care if you popped the baby on the bed, laid the baby on the bed, whatever, something happened. And it didn't seem to be just that. And she said, however, police officer testified that Woodward had said she was rough with the child and dropped him twice that day. Now, that's a big difference. Just pop the baby in the bed, toss the baby to the bed. It's different than, that's different. All right. A grand jury decided a first-degree murder charge. I think that was incorrect. Why do I think that? I don't think she was, okay, there were some issues she had with the parents. And so I think the theory came up that the parents were telling her she's going to behave that way, she needed to go away. And they're saying she took revenge on the parents by killing their child. I don't know if it's true. I think a lot of problems is you got an 18-year-old kid, and a lot of people have attacked the parents for this. They're like, you two were doctors. Why did you hire an au pair from an 18-year-old? An 18-year-old. And I'm going to say I agree with those people in a way. One is this. Same thing happens with women and their boyfriends. So you got a woman and she leaves her boyfriend with her little baby. The little baby cries and cries and cries. And you all know if you've been a parent, babies can be annoying. Babies can drive you insane. It's hard to deal with. They don't shut the hell up. And especially if you, like my granddaughter, she would not take a bottle. My daughter stayed home from work for months and nursed her baby. Then she expressed all this milk at work. And I was taking care of my granddaughter. And apparently my granddaughter did not like the container. She didn't mind the milk. It was mother's milk. She didn't like the container that it came in. And when I was with her, she refused to drink out of that damn container. It was so bad that basically she waited it out until my daughter got home, and then she just nursed constantly. It turned out that my daughter had a freezer full of mother's milk that she donated to hospitals for premature babies. She helped tons of people with all the mother's milk. Her own daughter wouldn't drink out of a bottle. But I'm going to tell you, as a grandparent, it was not fun. I mean, I never used a bottle on my own children because I nursed my children. But I was going to do it with my granddaughter because it was mother's milk and I was taking care of her and she wouldn't drink that stuff. It's not fun. It's not even my own daughter. She was not a good baby. My son was a good baby. Second one, this one, Cinnamon, was a good baby. Jeremy, of course, I adopted him when he was 5, so I got off having even to deal with him being a baby. She was a horrible baby. Cute. I used to say, thank God you're cute, because I'd take you by your little feet and whack you into the door frame. I didn't do that. But she was a horrible baby. She was a nurse constantly, and she was just a very intense child. He was very easy. And of course, I got him when I was 5, so he was really easy. But it's hard. It's hard work dealing with your own child that you adore and love and would never want to harm. You give that child to somebody else to take care of, and you walk out the door with your boyfriend's taking care of that little obnoxious baby, or your 2-year-old little whiny little toddler. That's why children die. They die in the care of boyfriends all the time because they don't have that inside to keep them from harming that child when that child drives them freaking nuts. So you're bringing in an au pair. Now, I did have an au pair once. I brought her. She was from France, but my children were older. They were way older, so they could fight back. So she was okay. She helped out around the house. She did, did a little stuff. She watched the kids here and there. Usually I was at home when she was doing it because I was homeschooling. So she was kind of part of the house. But I would never, ever have had that au pair that I hardly knew anything about, an 18-year-old, taking care of my baby. Because I don't know her history. I don't know what she can deal with. And unfortunately for these doctors, I don't know why, because both of them are making freaking decent money, why they would have an unknown 18-year-old roll into their house and take care of the baby. I think that was stupid. So I'm going to say right now, it was stupid. And they had issues with her, by the way. They had a lot of issues with her. She wasn't acting right. That was the whole problem. She was a shitty little. She was a very good au pair. Let's put it that way. I'm trying to find the thing about the au pair thing that they were dealing with. It. She was on the phone all the time. That she did this and this that, and they were thinking of getting rid of her because she was not very good au pair. But yet they left her with that child, and in my opinion, that child cried a lot, and she reacted in anger and frustration and hurt that child by not that she knew she was hurting that child, not like punching the child in the face, but just doing that to the child, being rough with the child, as she claimed. I think she was guilty. I do. And I think that getting less than a year in prison is ridiculous. But it says here, in 1922, Channel 4 in UK did a documentary called The Killer Nanny. Did she do it? And of course, the civil rights lawyer came up and said the shaken baby syndrome was bullshit. And I'm saying bullshit straight from Wikipedia, so do not demonetize me, YouTube. Boston pediatrician and child abuse expert who treated Matthew and was also key prosecution. Oh, he's dead, so he can't speak. But here we go again with this, the before trial, our at trial scientists and the after trial scientists. And so it's like cases these days never end. Between the media and the internet and the Innocence Project, cases never end. So when they're found guilty 30 years ago, they'll go on for years and years because somebody's making money off of it. If nobody was making money off of it or getting political advantages or any of these things, this stuff wouldn't exist. But there's a, yeah. And if I think we went to a professional jury system, we might eliminate some of this problem. But I think we need to get rid of the new method of the prosecutors and the judges coming in and annihilating the case without going back to an appeal. So much as I don't think that Glossip should get an appeal, at least he's getting an actual, I mean, he got his appeal, but at least, if nothing else, it's a new trial and not just one person sitting there and a bunch of scientists going, oh, they didn't do it. So at least it's a new trial. Whether we find, what that jury will find, I wish it was a professional jury, is a whole nother matter. Shell says, people won't like what you say, Pat. I had a childminder when my kids were small, but she was my age. I can't blame the parents, but I never would have left my child with an 18-year-old. The problem we have is that people are often trusting. I'm not saying the parents are bad parents. I think they were probably trusting, which they shouldn't have been. And when they started seeing she wasn't exactly the best of human beings and didn't take her job as seriously as she should have, they should have gotten rid of her right away and gotten somebody else in there. I think they're foolish. That's a difference between being a terrible people or stupid. They're foolish. The problem we have when we bring in people that we do not know, whether it be a cousin, people do this with it. Oh, my cousin needs a place to live. Do you know your cousin's a meth head? Maybe he'll, did you know that? Oh, well, he's my cousin, so I got to help him out. Really? How many times has he been in jail? I know you want to be good-hearted, but especially if you got little kids in the house. Oh, my new boyfriend's the sweetest guy in the world. How long have you known him? 2 months. Do you not have young children and a teenager in the house? Well, yes, but he's a great guy. How do you know he's a great guy? Tell you what, tell you're a great guy that you've got children in the house and you will see him for the next year. And then if you still, things are still going on, you'll consider marrying. You want to see how a great guy disappears? Really quick. So a lot of times people just don't, they trust more than they should trust, because people are human, and this is one of the problems. Even crappy boyfriends are human, and young au pairs are human, and screaming children are not fun. I don't know why people always think it. I don't even love other people's kids very much. I homeschooled all my children, and I love my friends, and I cared about their children. But quite frankly, sometimes I'm not that kicky about having their children around. I mean, my kids had all their friends over all the time. But did I have this overly motherly nature toward somebody else's kid? No. My granddaughter, same thing. I like my granddaughter's friends, but I prefer to be with my granddaughter alone because her friends annoy me. Because my granddaughter's annoying enough, but then you have this other kid who's in there, and they're sitting in the car together, two 10-year-old, 11-year-old girls, and they're like saying stupid stuff for the entire time you're driving to the freaking roller skating rink. And you're like, they're so annoying. But I am her grandmother, so I love her. And that's my daughter's best friend. So I love her too. And I do love her parents. So, but I'm only really nice because of who I am to them. But if they weren't related to me in any way, would I be as nice? Would I be as willing to put up with it? No. And so we have to understand that other people aren't either. They don't just adore your children. Teachers don't necessarily adore your children just because they're children. Sometimes teachers can't stand your kid. Let's be real. Oh my God. Taylor says, I volunteer to recess monitor at my daughter's school 2 times a week. That's my doses of little kids. Oh my God. Sometimes. I've never left my kid alone with anyone for one day in 18 years. Michaela, I'm with you there. I've always been very, I'm not very trusting of other people with my kid, just because, yeah. I mean, but I understand people have to do it. There are people who have to work. There are people who just cannot not have somebody. And if they've got somebody they can trust. I did leave my child with my mother. I trusted her. My sister, I trusted her. That was it. Not very often either. I mean, it's extremely rare. But other people, I'm like, yeah, it's not that I don't love you guys, but I'm not leaving my kid with you. Why would you let someone you don't truly trust with your most valuable assets? Well, Carol, that is a good question. The problem is people don't see the possibility of the future. They're like, okay, this seems like a nice girl. She'll be fine. It seems like a nice guy. He'll be fine. People just a lot of times don't think. That's what it comes right down to. They don't envision what could happen. Because generally speaking, it won't happen. Here's the problem. Most of the time you hire an au pair, even if they're 18 years old from another country, usually they're fine. That's the problem. Usually they're fine. The problem is you don't know when they're going to be fine. Same thing. A lot of people move in with boyfriends, and boyfriends don't kill their kids until one of them does. So the question always is, when you're weighing out life, do you not live life because this could happen? Or do you say, hey, the chances are only 1 out of 200? But what if you're the 1 out of 200? So this is the problem I think we always deal with. So I have sympathy, but I also say, hey, you might want to be a little more cautious. Taylor, as a therapist, the amount of clients I've had who have been touched inappropriately by family and friends of the family. Ooh, that's concerning. Jeez. Yeah. Well, there are a lot of screwed up people in the world. As a matter of fact, it's interesting. I just got this email. I did this show on the woman who was killed in Mexico. Well, no, take that back. She was found dead in Mexico, and shoot, what do you call that thing? It's a long thing with water. I forgot what they're called in Mexico. But anyway, I did a show on her. She left a bar. She got in a taxi. She said the taxi guy was messing with her. So she got out of the taxi. She ends up at the bottom of this thing, the water thing, which I can't remember. It's in some hotel. There were 3 of them. I forgot what they're called. But anyway, she was found at the bottom of one of them. And I concluded that it was an accidental death. that she was not murdered. And this person just wrote me about femicide in Mexico and said, hey, but this, and this, and that. I'm like, here's the thing. She was talking about femicide in Mexico, that men kill women in Mexico. Guess what? Men kill women in the US. Men kill women in Canada. Men kill women in the UK. Men kill women in India. Most of the time, there's a lot of that going on in every country. And some countries less because they have a very, very tough legal system. Like Saudi Arabia, I think, is very low on that kind of thing. But then again, women can hardly move out of their houses without being in a burqa. And they're also they're always with men, so they're protected. And if you do something wrong in Saudi Arabia, they kill you quickly. So hey, Saudi Arabia has very low incidences of that kind of thing. But in countries that don't have that level of stuff, and perhaps a lot of poverty and a lot of overcrowding and big populations and poor police systems, you got a lot of guys out there messed up. And if they see a woman walking alone, opportunity. But it's funny because she was like, well, this is all because we have femicide in Mexico. I'm like, maybe not just Mexico. Pretty much we have it here too. So, yeah. In some places, yeah, that's a whole nother issue. But so it's interesting how we don't seem to understand that people with mental problems, psychological problems, psychopathic problems exist everywhere. And unfortunately, if you run into them, not good things can happen. So I thought that was an interesting case. What was this case? Oh, I don't know anything about him yet. So the little boy disappeared. Who is that? Shoot, who is that? Who is that? Oh, it's still a second baby thing, I think. This was Louise Woodward. Dr. Grande was much more willing to say maybe it was just, whatever. He says he thinks she did kill the child, but maybe the scientists are correct about shaken baby. So anyway, what's this? Oh, okay. I want to point this one out. Somebody asked me about Charlotte Fimiano's killer. 25 years later, in 1997, this woman was found murdered in that house. And I want to point this out because it's gotten nowhere, by the way, this case. Let me see if I can find. And people sometimes ask me why I don't do certain cases. And the real reason is because what's the point? But I saw this whole thing about, let's see if I can find this. Hold on a second. It was, I thought I had it here. Okay. Well, let me put it this way. I'll make this one simple because I'm not going to go into a big time. But she was a realtor who got a phone call, and the guy said, "Can you meet me at this house? I want to look at the house." She went there. She ended up strangled and shot. No sexual assault. So the question is, what happened? Her husband seems to have been eliminated. He was at work. There was no real good reason to believe he had anything to do with it. Never been solved. The question is, a lot of people go into a whole lot of nonsense about what they think the whole motive was and who did it and blah, blah, blah. And what it comes right down to it is that there was a guy named David Bartolebe, and he was a counterfeiter and a serial killer from Virginia. And he also did in real estate agents. Why? Because unfortunately, in the past at least, they were foolish enough to go to a house without proper knowledge of who that person was they were going to meet. And obviously, in my opinion, that if the person should come to the office, show their ID. We know who they are before you go anyplace. And of course, women going alone to an unattended home with a guy is not exactly the safest thing in the world. So she was a great realtor. So she was like doing real great in the business. She just didn't want to give up that opportunity. She went out to show this guy the home and didn't come back out. She wasn't raped. There's no sign of sexual assault. So that's why the issue comes down to what was the purpose of the crime? And I have no clue. And so this is as a profile, I think it's really important not to have a clue when you don't have a clue. It could be a sexual assault in the sense that in his own mind, the killing of her, getting her to come out there and killing her was thrill. It could be that he was a stalker type who had seen her on, because, those benches where you have pictures of the realtors all over the place and they're all everywhere. People stalker types get obsessed. We don't actually know what happened to her before she got strangled and shot. We don't. Was there a moment where this guy got his rocks off just by looking at her face? We don't know. Could it have been a sexual assault that went wrong? Could it be a serial killer? It just didn't go right and he got pissed off. Could be. We can't tell. The only thing we need to eliminate is that it was anybody she knew. Other than that, if the complete stranger, all we can say is that unfortunately she went to a location where she did not know who that person was. Therefore, they weren't identified. And unless there's DNA at the location and anything else, case will go unsolved, and it has gone unsolved. So luckily, I think in the real estate business, they've picked up some precautions about how not to get yourself killed by going to places with unidentified human beings. Because serial killers and stalkers are both dangerous, and they both look for opportunities. Well, serial killers more. They look for opportunities to get you alone where nobody's going to see you do it. Stalkers, on the other hand, sometimes are actually out there. Sometimes they will easily be caught because all they want is that one moment in the sun with their victim. Other times they will sneak up on the victim, kill them, and have that moment in the sun just to see it in the newspapers later and never actually pay the price. Now, speaking of that, somebody asked me about this case. So I can get pictures of it. Okay. This is these are. Let me see if I can get a better picture of this. All right. There's 3 girls, there's 3 women here. I'm not sure if those are all 3 of the women, but they claimed they were being stalked. They're streamers. Okay, they're streamers. Streamers Valkyrie, Sina, and Emiru. I guess I may be pronouncing this all incorrectly, but oh well, I don't watch them. A terrifying scene unfolded last night as prominent streamers Emiru, Sina, and Valkyrie were attacked by a fan, seemingly a stalker, during a live stream, all caught on camera. And this is them. They're saying, "Oh my God, the guy's asking for our number," and then this is them freaking out. Oh, where's the one? I don't have the picture of them freaking out. What happened to that one? Okay, I did lose one. Hold on. Where's my picture of the guy? Oh, a second. What? Oh, damn. Okay, I did lose a picture after all. Where'd he go? Man, I wanted that picture. Shoot. He's this little guy. He's a kind of a wimpy little dude sitting. Let's see what this is. Nope, that's not him. Okay, I don't know. Yep, that's him. Okay, I lost my picture. Dang it all. Hold on one second. Okay, I did forget him. Okay, he's a little guy. I don't have in my picture. But anyway, so they're huge, apparently, streamers. A terrifying scene unfolded last night as a prominent streamers were attacked by a fan, seemingly a stalker, during a live stream, all caught on camera. The incident took place on a boardwalk where a man who it turned out had apparently been following them for 30 minutes or so, and at one point previously asked for Emiru's number, ended up lunging at the women, threatening to kill them on live stream. The man, as yet to be identified but shown on camera, apparently changed his outfit to follow the women. I don't know how true this is. This is a big problem we have too. When people are streamers and they do everything on camera, half the time you don't know if they're doing it to get attention or they're doing it for real. Guy changed his clothes. How was that? Did he put a jacket on because it got colder? Or did he literally go into a bathroom and change his entire clothes so they wouldn't recognize him? But to me, he was pretty obvious who he was. So, I mean, he's a small guy, kind of Asian, I think. Couldn't quite figure if he's Korean or Chinese. I don't quite sure what he was. But he's a small guy. And it was in Texas, I guess. So it wasn't like he was like it was kind of obvious in my opinion. So if he changed his clothes, I don't think that would have done it. So I don't quite get that. Anyway, he changed his outfit to follow the women after previously taking a photo with him. Okay, so he took a photo with him, so it's like they knew who he was. Given that this woman of this group of streamers have millions of fans, many have banded together to try and identify the man. Okay, whatever. And should he be identified? Well, he did say, I'll kill you. He did say that. It's unclear what the status of law enforcement's involvement is in this. Okay, so they said basically they were very shocked. Of course, they're on camera doing all this stuff. They're shocked. I just have to say to people, stop being shocked. You stream to millions of people. You're constantly online. You are going to get stalkers. You're going to get, especially if they do gaming and stuff, you're going to get incels all over the place. Then you walk around in public, your face is known. You're going to have people come up to you. All famous people do. And if you're a huge, huge, huge streamer, you're famous. Maybe not famous as a Hollywood star, but famous enough. Now, I've been fortunate. I've had levels of fame, but not to the point where when I'm walking around in public without the hair and makeup and all that crap, a few people have recognized me, but most do not. Most don't care. But I have had stalkers anyway, because I was on television all the time. People sent me emails and presents and all kinds of stuff that were concerning. Now there's people who are just fans and friends who are great. But I've had the concerning people. They're like shocked. I'm like, you're shocked. You're young, attractive women. You think you're shocked. Is it right that this guy harassed them? Now, look, I looked at this little video, and it's this little guy, and apparently they took a picture of him, and then he tried to get their phone number, and they said, and then he's like, I'll kill you. And somebody came and grabbed him, and he's, I'll kill you. Okay, I don't think they were highly threatened. What did he say? What he said was wrong? Yes, he was. He was angry because they wouldn't give him the time of day at that certain point. He's a little jackass. But they made this huge deal of it as if, my God, should they deal with it? Yes. But the fact that they're going to make this a huge deal for themselves concerns me, because this, to me, is one of the problems we have with people not understanding that when you put yourself out there to that extent, especially when you're younger, attractive, you're on OnlyFans all over the place, showing all parts of your body, and then you whine that there's, oh my God, there's men who just want to take advantage of me. You think, people don't seem to understand their own roles in things, that, you're completely blameless of everything, that anything you do is okay and everything they do is not okay. And sometimes what you're doing is okay. Like, for example, Jill Dando. I still believe Jill Dando was killed by a stalker. I think they had the right guy. Now people are out there saying, oh my God, she was killed by Russian cartels. Nonsense stuff. She was on television, true. She did talk about crime, it's true. But she was in no way any kind of major threat to anybody. She was a host of a crime show, for God's sakes. It's like going after Nancy Grace. What, really? Nancy Grace does a crime show. She's not taking anybody down in any massively huge way that the cartels have to go after Nancy Grace or any one of these other, myself included. There's just no real point in that. It's not like I am actually involved in a big, huge operation. I'm just this person who talks some crap on a show. So they're not going to waste their time. I've never believed for a minute that Jill Dando was killed by anybody but a stalker. I don't care what all the other shows say. I just think it's nonsense. So I think she was killed by a stalker. Why? Because a guy got obsessed with her because he saw her on television and she was pretty, and he got this thing. Just like people fall in love with movie stars. They do. They fall in love with movie stars, and because the interaction, which isn't there. I mean, it's only one way, but still, my favorite star of all time is Shah Rukh Khan. Anybody who's known me for long enough, I love Shah Rukh Khan. He's an Indian superstar, the king of Bollywood. And now that he's gotten older, he's not quite as the same as he used to be when he was younger. But 20 years ago, I mean, when I saw him in his first movie, I'm like, oh my God. Now, mind you, I've never had a crush on any star ever. But it was what he presented, the way he presented himself in movies, the romance and the thing. It struck me in a way. Now, does that mean I'm going to go stalk the dude? No. But does it mean other people might not stalk him? Yes. Other people watch every one of his movies and they see him as being, they want to be with him. And he actually has a very good movie called Fan, which I really like. You can find it on YouTube. I'm sorry, you can find it on Prime Video. It's called Fan. And he plays two roles. He plays himself as a star in his 40s. He plays himself as a 20-year-old obsessed fan, both male. But the younger one looks like him. He calls himself Junior because he does performances where he pretends he's that guy. And he sees himself as being connected to the star. And he wins this award for representing the star in the show. He's really good. He's the same guy, but anyway, he's really good in this, in this particular movie. And so he goes to Mumbai to meet with the star, and he wants to bring him the trophy that he won representing him. And he becomes very aggressive. And the star's like, I don't owe you anything. I do my stuff. I do my stuff for the public. I do movies. I make you all happy. I don't owe you my time. I don't owe you to be friends with me. He doesn't take it well, the stalker dude, and makes his life absolutely hell. And it's a brilliant movie. It's really good. It's called Fan, and it has English subtitles. But this is what I see happening with a lot of people who are in the public. It sucks. Gene Hackman decided he didn't want that level of people bothering him, people obsessing with him, people just wanting to run up to him and hug him and kiss him and get his name. He went and hid out in Santa Fe to become a normal person. 100% understandable, because anytime you're in the public eye, that is what you have to deal with. And it was only fortunate for me that I only had to deal with it in a milder way, but I still dealt with it. I still did have stalkers. But if you're going to be 20s and 30s and you're going to be on every single social media outlet and have 1 million subscribers, you are setting yourself up for stalkers. And when you're out in public, some people are saying, why didn't they have guards? Why didn't they have security? And other people are like, well, they're just young women. They shouldn't have to have security. They're making a shitload of money. Maybe they should have security. Does it suck to have security every time you freaking go out in public? Yes. I mean, I personally don't want to live like that. And I'm lucky I've never had to live like that. So I can go any place, nobody knows who the hell I am. It's great. But once you get to that level, people know you everywhere. That's why a lot of famous people only have specific places that they go, to keep things under wraps so that they can have privacy. So they don't have to deal with this all the time. They know they're going to have to deal with it, but they try to, lower that interaction by having private rooms or only going to certain restaurants that know them well, that only cater to very wealthy people. They only have very wealthy friends who are in Hollywood. Why? Because those people aren't all thrilled about them. You know what I mean? In other words, if you're a famous actor and you're hanging out with famous actors, they're just regular people to you. But if you're a famous actor and hanging out with not regular people, that can be a problem. I mean, Dolly Parton was very fortunate that her husband was a regular dude and didn't give a shit about her, her big Hollywood career, and her all music career. And they stayed together. Sad he died just recently. But it worked out really well for them. She did her thing and he stayed and did his thing at home and did his regular work. And she didn't make him hang out with her and all the public things, although she did once and he never forgave her. No, it's just like, don't do that again. And it worked for them because she got the regular guy at home appreciated her for being her. He wasn't into her being a fan. And that was pretty neat for her. But sometimes a wealthy Hollywood person will marry another wealthy Hollywood person so that both of them aren't all that bent out of shape about the other person being at that level. They're like, whatever, big deal, But the differences can cause a problem. So when you're on social media and you have fans all over the place, and you know who the hell these fans are, you do run the risk of being stalked. And I don't think this guy was a big deal. I think they blew that up completely out of proportion. I think maybe, again, we see too many influencers out there constantly photographing everything and videoing everything because they want the attention. Well, you got the attention, and now you're whining about it. So you got that issue too. So yeah, I'm not all that bent out of shape about that guy. He's a little idiot. Mostly he's a little idiot, in my opinion. Definitely Prime Video. It's very, very good. He does an amazing job. And they do some kind of AI thing, and they make him look way younger than he is when he's doing the 20-year-old thing, when he's doing the 40-year-old thing. It's quite, or 50-year-olds. I don't know what he is in the movie, but he's playing himself as a fan, as a younger guy. And it's pretty cool. It's a really neat movie. But when he said, "I don't owe you anything," I got what he was coming from, because what happens is you care about your fans, you care about your friends, and you want to have a communication, and you want to reach out, you want to have a relationship. You do, but sometimes it can get too much. And then he says, at that point, I don't owe you this, because if I did that for every one of my million fans, what the hell? I can't do it. And I have a life. I have my wife and my children. I've got my work, and I don't owe you this. But the stalker definitely thinks they owe you because I'll point it out this way. Because this is real. Sometimes I get emails. Well, I get a lot of emails. I get emails, I get messages, and I want them. Mind you, it's not that I don't want them. Comments. But what happens is the person who sends the email or the comment or the message, a lot of times they're one person waiting for my reply. The problem is I might have 20 to 30 to 50 messages or emails. Now, we took a look at somebody, Dr. Grandy. Dr. Grandy doesn't answer any of his emails or any of his messages or any of his comments. Why? Because the dude has over 1 million subscribers. He cannot possibly respond to anybody. So he's like, I'm done. I still have the advantage of being able to respond, especially to my patrons here. I like that. But sometimes what will happen is I will get an email in and it'll get lost in the dozens of emails I get. And somebody will say, well, Pat, why didn't you respond to me? And I'm like, because you're looking at what you sent me is that one email. I'm looking at 50 emails. So it's much more difficult on the side where you're having to, you're getting that kind of level of response in. So somebody who's a famous influencer, actor, or a musician or whatever, they're like, yeah. That's why a lot of them hire publicity people who handle that, because they just simply can't, even if they want to. And it's always kind of cool that once in a while, I forgot who it was. Well, you can have good or bad fans that you hook up with. What? I just did the one on, okay. What's her name? Tex-Mex singer. Come on, somebody give me her name. I like her, so I'm just blanking. I always blank on everything. Not because I have Alzheimer's, just because I have too many names in my head. Somebody give me, what's her name? Crystal says I'm persistent. And that's what you have to do. I always tell people, if I ignore you, send me another email, because a lot of times I'll catch up with it later. Somebody help me out. Selena. Yeah, Selena. She hooked up with a fan. Unfortunately, the fan killed her because the fan became obsessed with her. But there's another person. I'm trying to think of her name. She was a country singer from a long time ago. Was a country singer, and she had a fan who became her best friend. And I can't remember now who it was. There's actually a theater play, and I actually tried out for that theater play. It's the only theater play I've ever tried out for as an adult. I didn't get it, but I tried out for it. Does anybody remember who Patsy was? Patsy Cline. I think it was Patsy Cline. And she got this fan who became like her best friend. So it's not that a person who is well known can't have a friend who's not well known, because sometimes it's the best thing in the freaking world is to have a friend who's just a friend and not another person that's in all that mess. So but once you get into that situation, you just have to be aware of where you are and where you're putting yourself out in public. And now public is a lot more public than it ever used to be. I mean, it's insane. So even if I have my YouTube channel and I have my Facebook and Twitter, I have that, but I don't have, I go to TikTok, but I don't have anything on TikTok. I don't have anything on Instagram, Twitch, none of this. And Facebook is just a regular page. I don't have any videos. I only have videos on YouTube, and that's here. But people take my videos and put them on their YouTube channels. So even if I'm just here with my patrons and my subscribers, somebody will take that and stick it on their channel. And of course, they might have way more subscribers than me and might not even like me. They may be trashing me on their channel. And so their subscribers like, oh, that Pat Brown, she's awful. So they're not fans. They become anti-fans. They come over to attack me because I put myself out here. And that's a fact. I mean, you know, and I'm very realistic that if I choose this line of work, the same thing with hate. People say, oh, Pat, don't take the hate mail too seriously. No, I don't. I get hate mail all the time. Nasty stuff. And I've had it for 2 decades. And is it pleasant? No, it's never pleasant. Most of the time it makes me laugh. I'm like, seriously? But you know, it's also not pleasant. It's never pleasant when you open up your email and your person is really nasty. It's never pleasant no matter how easy you take it. But I also understand that if I put myself out in the public eye, as much as I do, I'm going to be nailed with hate mail. It's going to happen, especially on social media, because once upon a time when people were actors, they had a lot of protection when social media didn't exist. It was just the media, you know, the newspapers might come and interview them and stuff like that. Somebody might send them a letter. That would be the best way they would get anybody saying anything to them. And a lot of times they could just have people intercept the letters. But once social media came up, you're basically bombarded with a lot of hate. And if you can't handle it, you shouldn't be doing this work, because it's not, you know, it is what it is. And you gotta understand that if you're making that choice, you're making that choice. So Rihanna, no. Yeah, she was. I did a whole thing on Selena. Really sad. I mean, I think she seemed like a really super nice person and a beautiful singer. I just really liked her. And that psychopath, a little fan of hers, she started out doing some useful things, but she wanted to be. Sometimes people want way more than you can give them, and Selena decided she couldn't give her what she wanted, and then she wasn't going to let Selena go on without her, essentially. So, but, you know, I'll say this, Harper. Do people like the attention? Yes. Do people also like the bad attention? Yes. This again, I always talk about mixed motives. Mixed motives are in everybody's life. We like attention, but we don't want that kind of attention. And so the problem is, if you get one, you're going to get the other. It's just the way things is. People like being pretty, for example. I remember being pretty when I was 19 years old. Don't put a whole bunch of freaking stupid messages. Pat, you're still pretty. Only because I'm using the thing that makes my face look better. Look, I don't have an issue with this. I know what age I'm at. Okay. But when I was 19, I was hot. Okay. And because I was hot, I got a lot of attention. But I also got a lot of good attention, and I got a lot of bad attention. And to look back on those days, part of me is like, oh, I missed that. And part of me is like, thank God I don't have to live that way anymore, because I don't have to deal with that anymore. I walk down the street, I don't get to pay it. Nobody pays attention to me. I don't have men whistling at me and all that crap. So part of it is better and part of it is worse. It's just the way life is. Being in the public eye, you have some great advantages and you've got some disadvantages. It's life. I mean, you know. It's good being married. It's not good being married. It's good being single. It's not good being single. It's good having kids. It's not good not having kids. It's life. So, oh yeah, that's probably true. Some intentionally leak stuff to the media. They do, because that brings in even more attention. This whole thing for the 3 women people are going crazy about trying to find the guy. I don't know. It may have happened, but did they have to publicize it to that level? Probably not. Again, the guy didn't look like he was. You just look like a weirdo, you know, like just a little loser dude. That's all it looked like to me. Some guy was like, oh, I'm going to kill you. Said something stupid. They could have just left it alone and walked away. But they made a big deal of it. I mean, I'm pretty sure the 3 women could have beat that guy up. So, I mean, I'm not quite sure why it was such a big deal. But they made it a big deal. And so, let me see what time it is. Oh, it's 5 o'clock. Okay, I want to do one thing before I go, just because I keep putting this off, and I just want to read this to you. So this is, no, I have Dear Pat now. Dear Pat, which is my channel for crime issue. Advice issues. But I want to read this one to you. That was a Dear Eric, and it made me laugh. And it's important because it really shows profiling more than it's an issue of what advice I would give. But I want you to see the profiling issue here. And I want to see how many of you, before I go and finish the show, what you come up with. Asking Eric, my ex-wife keeps punishing me for my illness. Dear Eric, I suffered a curable illness I was unaware I had. A symptom of the illness was anxiety. I was acting very differently with anxiety after never having it my entire life. My wife left me since I was such a different person, not being the calm, strong person I'd always been, but stressed out and worried. After she left, I went to the doctor and was diagnosed with the illness. I was sure she would reconcile with me once she found out I had the illness. Instead, she said I was using it as an excuse and never spoke to me again. She has been doing all she can to punish me. She is trying to take my daughter away from me and has had me jailed for emailing her, asking her to stop this. Is it okay to punish me like this for an illness I had no idea I was even suffering from? It was completely curable, and I'm back to who I was before the illness, but my wife doesn't believe or understand. And so let's profile here. I'm going to have you all profile. What do you think? While you're trying to profile here, I'll just point some of the things Eric said. Dear Dad, I'm glad you're able to get back help for your illness, and I'm glad you're back to your old self. Anxiety can be incredibly hard to manage and can manifest in a variety of ways, both physical and mental. I empathize with the confusion and fear this must have caused you. Okay. Then he talks about going to a lawyer and some other things. The wife was looking for an excuse, Paul says, and she was glad to find one. Maybe. That's not what I see. What else do you see? Oh, she sounds like a cold-hearted woman. Interesting. Not what I see. Cauliflower says, I'm coming up with nothing. Okay. Dog's discussion. He's a liar. That's what I'm coming up with. Ooh, somebody's on my smart. We got these teams here now. Teams. People change without even an illness. She was ready to move on. Maybe. He's using the illness as an excuse for his behavior. Let's go back. I'll go with the dog's discussion. He's a liar. Well, at least she's thinking things out. He doesn't have an illness. That's also a good question. I don't know if he does or doesn't, but let's go back. And this is where a profiler would say, do I see deception? All right, let's look at deception. He starts out with, I suffered a curable illness I was unaware I had. What did you think you had, dude? You had such a level of anxiety that you treated your wife like dirt. She was terrified of you with her child, your child. You were unaware you had this. How are you unaware? Then he says, I've never had this anxiety. I acted very differently. A symptom of the illness was anxiety. What's wrong with the sentence? A symptom of the illness was anxiety. What's the problem with the sentence right here? Was he an addict? Don't know. That's a good question. At the start he was incurable. Now he's totally cured. That's an interesting thing. Yeah. Suddenly, does he say how he was cured? How was he cured? And by the way, let's go back. A symptom of the illness was anxiety. Well, Cauliflower is correct. Anxiety could be a bunch of things. All right. Depression. He doesn't say it was depressed. Hypochondriac doesn't say it's hypochondriac. There we go. Molly, I don't see all the evidence because someone is leaving it out. Who's leaving it out? The guy who's asking the question. He doesn't even say what the illness is. If you have an illness, that anxiety is part of the symptoms. Why the hell aren't you saying what the hell your illness is? You're accusing your wife of leaving you and not coming back because of this illness, and you won't actually say what the illness is. So that's an interesting problem here. Oh, that there are actually people who've done that, Harper. Pretend you got brain cancer to get it back. Munchausen syndrome. That I don't know, but you wouldn't know if he had anxiety. You would think. But the big point is that a symptom of the illness is anxiety, but he never states what the illness is. That's deception right there. Then he says, I was acting very differently than anxiety I've never had in my life. Well, if you've been, and he says, I'm a completely different person. I was always a calm, strong person, but then I became stressed out and worried. So you're saying that your wife spent her life with you. Mind you, she said they're having trouble over their child. So I'm going to say, first of all, the child doesn't seem very old. So how long were you with their wife? So your wife marries you. You're this strong and calm person. And suddenly you're to this point where you're horrible to be around. She's obviously not happy. She's terrified of you. You have anxiety. You're causing problems in your marriage and with your child. And you don't go to the doctor. That's the next thing he says. After she left, I went to the doctor. Why the hell didn't you go to the doctor earlier? You see your wife is freaking out. Your daughter's not, or whatever, child's not happy. Something's wrong. You don't go to the doctor when it is happening. You wait till you are dumped, and then you go to the doctor. And then you get diagnosed with the unknown illness. Then you say, I was sure she would reconcile with me once she found out about the illness. Why would she do that? Why would she reconcile with a guy who was refusing to go to the doctor when you had the illness? Now you don't even say what the illness is. You wanted to come back into the hornet's nest and bring her child back in as well. Instead, she said, I was using it as an excuse and never spoke to me again. To that level, I'm going to say she was scared shitless of you. She don't want her child around you. She don't want to be around you. It's not just anxiety. It's not just depression. That's not what was going on in there, because people don't run away to that level and never refuse to talk to you again with just anxiety. My belief is that you exhibited terrifying behavior, controlling behavior, because I see controlling right here. I see the fact that you won't tell the truth. You're deceptive. You're already a controlling person. You wanted to control her with whatever you were doing, and she had enough of it and she left. And then you went to a doctor, claimed you were cured. So yeah, I think you're lying. To get her back, you're lying. And you're trying to pretend that, oh, that all didn't happen. Oh, the only reason it happened is because I couldn't help myself. Now she says she's trying to take my daughter from him. Had me jailed for emailing her. To ask her to stop this. Stop what? What did she want you to stop? You don't just get stopped. You don't get jailed because you sent an email. You get jailed because you sent something that was threatening. Is it okay to punish me like this? She's not punishing you, dude. You're punishing her. And you're going to make damn sure she comes back to you. I'm going to say you might be the P word. So I find it kind of fascinating that Eric completely didn't get it. So then he's talking about this. You're right that no one should punish you for having an illness, but without knowing more about the rest of your relationship. Okay, that's the only correct part. It is hard to say with there's other issues at play, which have kept your wife from reconciling. Like you're a lying, deceptive creature. She has set a boundary, which she has. And the best thing for you to do is accept it and turn your focus toward being present for your daughter. Okay, if you are that kind of person who does that to your wife, I don't think you need to be around your daughter. So then he says, if you can, please talk to a lawyer about your custody arrangement so your rights are protected. And you have an advocate who can direct you to the proper channels for communication. Being jailed over an email suggests perhaps there was a restraining order. Now he's right about that. Proper order, restraining order in place. If that's the case, make sure you're not violating an order or putting yourself or your daughter in danger. You've navigated a hard health crisis and come out the other side. He did not. Though it might not salvage your marriage, it's not too late to be the kind of father you want to be. Okay, Eric, some of your things you say are right, but you have completely missed the point. The guy's a lying, deceptive, controlling, possibly psychopathic human being, and you missed it in all of this. A lot of times because you're trying to be nice. So, yeah, he is definitely trying to control the narrative. No, seasonal affective disorder does not cause you to be that kind of human being. And the bipolar thing, I've always had questions about the bipolar claim. I know a lot of people believe in it, but under certain circumstances, I'm not going to get into all of that because it'll be a big argument. But no, see, people say I have seasonal affective disorder because I freaking hate winter. And I just remember how I trashed Your Tango, which I still trash, but they had one article there, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll give them credit on this, because I'm like, well, are you depressed? It's like, do you sleep in? I'm like, okay. What about you eat too much? You don't brush your hair. I'm like, I hate winter. I get depressed every winter. I freaking hate it. It's a seasonal affective disorder. It's just I freaking hate the cold and dark. I do. I hate the cold and dark. It's not because it's doing something chemically to me. I'm just rational. I don't like it. The other day in Maryland, we had what I call the fall spring. And we had a day, it was like 60 degrees. And I got in my car and I'm like, the windows were open. I could have put the top down. And, oh my God, I felt like life was rushing back into me. It was the smell that birds were singing in the trees. And I'm like, oh my God, it feels like life has returned. That's what I always feel like when spring shows up. But every winter, I think I'll get through it and I don't. That's why I keep saying, I got to get out of here in winter. And this year I didn't. I should be in India. I should be in Hawaii. I should be in Mexico, any freaking place, but here in Maryland, where I commiserate with many people in the UK, because today it's windy, rainy, and dark. But do I torture people because of that? Do I lie? Do I end up having to go to jail because of my seasonal affective disorder? Or is it because if I do all those things, I've got way more than seasonal affective disorder or any of these other nonsense things? Basically, you've got a personality disorder, and that's a guy that wife wants to get away from, and she wants to take her child with her so that child doesn't suffer. And I think poor Eric just missed that whole point. So, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Harper. It's not just about anxiety. I mean, there are, mind you, there are women who will try to keep their husbands from being around their children and will lie about it. There's husbands with personality disorders who will do the other thing, parental alienation thing. I've seen that too. So it's on both sides, mind you. What everything he said in his email to Eric told me, he's the side that needs that's dangerous, and she's not. She got out, and she doesn't want a child to be around. And one of the most difficult things, which is why I say to people all the time, don't get married before 2 years, and once you're married, don't have children before 2 years. Make sure you have a keeper, because once you're in there and you have to deal with the legal system and you have to go through judges who don't really know either one of you, you come to court with your freaking lawyers and your psychologists, and they all spew your stuff, and the judge is like, I haven't got a clue. Usually what happens, generally speaking, is that they'll lean toward wherever the children have been most recently that seems safer to them. If it's girls, they'll leave usually leave them with the women, the mothers. If they're boys, they sometimes tend toward the fathers. It all depends, but they're just guessing. They're guessing because they got two different things and they don't know who's telling the truth. So try to get in a situation where you don't have to be in custody battles. My God, it's just got to be the worst thing for you, your significant other, even if they happen to be a decent human being, and for your children. Try to avoid that. Please try to avoid it. Okay. Anyway, so much more to talk about. I'll do it next week at the next Hangout. I have extra things. If I didn't get to yours this week, remind me, and I'll try to get to it next week. And I will see you here on the weekend for whatever I decide to do this weekend. Oh, by the way, just curious, I did the Matthew Shepard case, and they demonetized it. And I did ask for a human review because they demonetized it like right off the bat. I'm like, what the heck? Because I didn't show anything from the crime. It's a hate crime. I'm like, why would you demonetize if we're talking about a hate crime or a theoretical hate crime? There's nothing I said in it. And I'm like, what the heck? Is it because he's gay? That was the craziest thing ever. And I asked for a human review, and I was thankful that they changed their mind and gave me my green $sign back. So it is monetized. But I was like, what the heck? I mean, I didn't say anything in that should be offensive to anybody. I couldn't figure it out. It's crazy. So anyway, thank you all for being here. I am so glad of you guys, and I like you all guys. I'm not too worried about you showing up and threatening to kill me. So. So, helps that I'm older. Really does. It helps that I'm older. Again, thank you for being here, and I will see you on the weekend. Bye.